it will come out 55 or 58 degrees centigrade as a mixer. That will be held for some time as per the table, and finally at the end of the soaking cycle, after completion of the 8 hours or maybe 6 hours or maybe 4 hours or maybe 3.5 hours, the water is drained out from the bottom. There is a special provision. I'll show that one in the subsequent talk. So the water is drained out in the same tank. Now the steam is released with a distribution pipe. So this way, within the same tank, the soaking cum steaming is happening. Then finally the paddy is discharged out, and that is taken to dryers. So these are actually your dryers basically. Okay, so these also your dryer. The holes which are being shown, that is called LSU, Louisiana State University dryer. So the paddy is dried in those Louisiana State University dryers. Now if you move further, the drying of paddy is parboiled paddy is generally done from 45 to 50% dry basis. As I mentioned, 35% is the limit which is attained. So sometimes it will be even 33% also. There is a slight difference. So this 33 to 35 will be making the limit of 45 to 50 in dry basis. So that will be brought down to 14 to 60% dry basis. So which is equivalent to 12 to 14% in wet basis. So this moisture reduction from 45 to 50 to a level of 14 to 16% is done in a proper dryer, or maybe sometimes, so if the dryer is not there, people may be using the sun drying or maybe solar drying also. That's a different case. But the intention is to bring down the moisture content so that this moisture content is suitable for proper milling and storage of the parboiled and dried paddy, right? Now the sun drying of paddy is generally practiced earlier days, but today in a commercial rice mill, sun drying is least practiced because it has inherent disadvantages in spite of having some advantages. Now for the uniform drying, it is important that paddy is spread in 2 to 3 centimeter thickness layer and stilled at interval of half an hour. So if you are practicing the sun drying, generally this is being done on a cement platform. It is being spread with a thickness of 2 to 3 centimeter. Then of course occasionally this is stayed. So that means it is very labor intensive process, and of course you need a large area for covering the huge volume of the paddy. And in addition, there are certain disadvantages in terms of maybe the hygiene. So the lot of birds, they come and sit on the paddy which is spread. They may be eating some of them, then they may be contaminating. Then there may be a lot of dust which is being accumulated because of the atmospheric pollution. Even many times it is risky because all of a sudden if the rain comes, such a widespread platform cannot be covered properly. So this way, sometimes the paddy may get spoiled because of the unexpected rain also. So those are all actually some of the disadvantages. So it is also important that the paddy is dried in 2 passes instead of a continuous drying. So in case of sun drying, generally what they do, so throughout the day they dry, then in the evening, so the whole of the lot will be heaped into several lots. So these lots are covered. So overnight actually some equilibration process is happening. That is called tempering, Tempering. So tempering is happening. So during the night time. So again next day this will be spread. So this way it will be dried for 1 or 2 days. So obviously the capacity will be restricted this way. But if you are going for mechanical drying arrangement like LSU dryers, then it is done in 2 passes. Like one pass, the moisture content will be brought down up to 18 to 20% from 45 to 50%. Then the rest of the moisture content will be reduced in the second pass after the tempering is done. Am I clear? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, if you come to the methods of parboiling, there are several methods. I will be discussing separately, starting from the ancient methods. But the CFTRA method of parboiling, I would like to discuss here because this is the most common method which is adopted in most of the Indian commercial rice mills, right? The CFTRA, of course, you know, it is a food institute in Mysore. So they have developed this process. That's why it is named after CFTRA, right? So the parboiling tank is filled with clean water and heated up to about 85 degrees centigrade. Then now actually the tank contains hot water. So this hot water generation also, this will be done using the steam pipes which are there inside the soaking cum steaming tank, right? So that means you don't require additionally any hot water tank also. Within the same tank, the water is filled and it is heated. Now the paddy is dumped into hot water in the tank for soaking purpose. So now the paddy temperature mixture, so the paddy and water mixture comes down to 70 degrees centigrade, which is maintained for 3 to 3.5 hours. Okay, so this is actually the common soaking procedure which is being adapted in case of CFTRI method. Now after the soaking, the excess water, rather actually most of the water except what has been absorbed by it, that is at the desired moisture content. Rest all actually it is excess water that is actually drained out from the tank. Then the soaked paddy is exposed to steam at a pressure of 4 kg per centimeter square until the husk starts splitting. So this is the indicator of the end of steaming process. So not all, maybe a couple of grains actually. So they show the husk splitting behavior. So that means it is the end of the steaming process. Now the steaming pad is dry. Now after completion of the steaming process by this way, as I told in terms of timing, so if it is a small tank, it is for 2 to 3 minutes. In case of larger tanks, it's 20 to 30 minutes depending upon the capacity. So however, those who work regularly there, so they are actually experienced and they understand by husk splitting rather than the following the time cycle, right? So after completion of the steaming process, the steamed paddy is now dried in multiple passes as I mentioned just now. So now that during parboiling, the water requirement is about 1.2 times of the weight of the paddy. That means if you are taking 1 ton of paddy, so you require about 1250 kg of water. Okay. Now the requirement of the steam is about 200 kg per ton of paddy. So please remember these figures. So maybe we may require to calculate the steam requirement in a larger rice mill in subsequent numerical solutions, right? So water requirement is 1.225 times of the paddy, and the steam requirement is about 200 kg per ton of paddy. So if you are processing, let's say 40 tons in a particular batch, so you require 40 into 200 kg. So almost 8,000 kg of steam is required, and your boiler which is to be established is based on such requirements, such calculations. Am I clear to you? Am I clear to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now moving further, I'll take into another part. So until now in these slides there is no doubts, I hope. If you have any clarifications you can ask now. I am dismounting the slide and going for another slide part. Okay. Any clarifications for anybody? No doubts, guys?
No, sir.
Okay, good. Is this visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this part of slide, it will I'll be explaining effects of parboiling on milling, nutritional and cooking quality of rice. And in addition, we will be discussing advantages and disadvantages of parboiling in detail. Okay. If you see the effects of parboiling on milling, nutritional and cooking quality. Obviously, we are performing this pre-milling treatment of parboiling for improvement of milling quality as well as the nutritional quality. However, the process has some implications on cooking quality. Cooking quality means when you cook the rice, so how it behaves, the elongation, the expansion, maybe how much time is required for cooking, how much loss of these things, solids, etc. Those are actually cooking qualities. We will be discussing about that one. Now, in the process of parboiling, it seals the cracks and hardens the grain. The process itself will be improving the rice quality or maybe in terms of sealing cracks. Generally, where from these cracks are coming? When the crop is on field, so in the standing crop, due to different weather conditions, due to different insect pest attack, the grain actually develops some kind of fissures and cracks inherently. But these fissures and cracks, so they will be developed to a larger extent whenever you are having alternative wetting and drying, like actually in case of rainy season, so there is rain for some time and subsequently there is immediate sunshine. Yeah, similarly during winter season there may be overnight snowfall, and during daytime actually we are having the sunshine. So this alternative wetting and drying of the standing crop also develop such kind of fissures and cracks. In turn, these fissures, if they are developed, the grain inherently this becomes weak. So because of that, when you go for milling, the grain actually splits into small proteins. Thus, instead of a head rice, what we are uh, calling like a complete rice is called head rice. Instead of a head rice, we will be getting most of them are as brokens. And invariably, you know, the brokens has very less market value and it is the loss of quality basically. So this parboiling process seals such kind of fissures and cracks. Then it will be hardened. It will harden the kernel overall. So this way, the head yield of the rice improves considerably for the varieties having poor milling quality. Even some of the varieties they have inherent poor milling quality because of long grain particularly. So many of the long grains they are actually weak in its strength. So those generally develop lot of brokers. So to improve milling quality and to improve the head rice yield, this parboiling is done. Secondly, the parboiling rice takes longer time compared to raw rice for the same degree of polish. So when you are going for polishing, polishing is the subsequent operation of the rice husking. So as a process in the rice mill, first step is cleaning. Subsequently, when you go for milling, so you will be removing the outermost husk portion. Then these husked rice that is actually polished. So during the polishing, the outermost layers like pericarp, the seed coat, all these aileron layer, these layers are removed, which is called bran. So the polishing operation is basically for the removal of the bran, and this bran removal process will be taking more time compared to your raw rice. Okay, because the surface is harder here. That's why. Now the parboiled rice also takes 3 to 4 times more abrasive load for the surface bran removal. That indicates you need to have higher amount of energy invested for the for the purpose of your polishing, right? The concentration of nutrients in the bran is higher than endosperm. So most of these minerals and the vitamins, etc., they remain mostly in the bran layers, right? In case of parboil, in case of in case of raw rice. So during the parboiling, many of these nutrients they are actually water soluble. They will be diffused into the endosperm. That is actually central core portion is called endosperm. So instead of remaining on the bran layer, this will be now diffused through the soaking water into the middle of the portions like endosperm. Hence, the loss of such minerals and vitamins during the polishing operation is minimized. That's how actually the raw rice actually, since you are not doing any treatment, most of the nutrients which are remaining in the bran will be removed along with the bran. Whereas in case of parboiled rice, these are actually diffused into the central core endosperm. Thus, the removal through the bran will be less. That's why the parboiled rice contains more nutrients and vitamins. The cooking quality is expressed in terms of time of cooking, swelling capacity, expansion ratio, color of the kernel as such, solids in outgoing gruel, and pastiness. So maybe pastiness means whenever you take rice kernel in your, sorry, after cooking, if it is actually very pasty or maybe the kernel is not intact, that's called pastiness, right? So depending upon the time temperature combination which you are using, obviously it will be taking more time as I mentioned, but the swelling capacity. So parboiled rice generally it swells more compared to your raw rice. Expansion ratio also it is higher in case of your parboiled rice. Color of course it will be turned from white to pale yellow or maybe light yellow color. And loss of solids in the gruel will be less in case of parboiled rice compared to your raw rice. Similarly, the pastiness is very less in case of parboiled rice compared to your raw rice. So raw rice actually, if it's slightly overcooked, it will become a paste overall. So the individual kernels will not be able to access, right? Whereas in case of parboiled rice, it will be intact even if it's slightly overcooked. So that means the kernel you can actually see individually without any damage or without any overcooking, right? disconnect. So similarly, the raw rice takes 15 to 20 minutes to get fully cooked, but the parboiled rice takes 30 to 40 minutes, almost double the time it is taking for the cooking purpose to the same degree of softness. If you are expecting a particular level of softness, to bring to the same softness, it will be taking double time for the cooking purpose. Moreover, raw rice cooked beyond 20 minutes, they become pasty. But in case of parboiled rice, even if it is slightly overcooked also, it will not damage its structure. Physically, it will be intact. The parboiled rice can absorb more water without losing its shape. So that's why the expansion ratio, the elongation, etc., these will be more in case of parboiled rice compared to your raw rice. That means the bulkiness after cooking will be much higher in case of your parboiled rice. The parboiled rice expands more along the breadth. Okay. Now, the loss of solids in gruel is more in raw rice compared to parboiled rice. Okay, I think these are all quite simple points. The discoloration of the rice during parboiling is mainly due to non-enzymatic Maillard type browning reaction that can be inhibited by bisulfite application. Otherwise, actually, it will be developing little deeper color. The husk pigment, the husk actually it is a yellowish in color. So even the husk pigment also during soaking and subsequent steaming, this may also contribute to the color by diffusion into the endosperm. So this way, the parboiled rice is actually pale yellow or maybe deep yellow depending upon what process you are adapting, what kind of conditions you are actually adopting. Okay, am I clear to you so far?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now coming to the advantages of parboiling, of course some of them already we have mentioned, might be repeated in a different form, but you can just see the shelling of parboiled paddy is easier because the husk is split during parboiling. So one of the indicators for the completion of the parboiling process is the splitting of husk. Although all kernels will not be splitting completely, but at least this will be kind of loosening of husk is there, splitting might have been initiated. So the shelling, like actually the removal of husk portion, it is much easier compared to your raw rice. Extra strength acquired by the kernel during your parboiling helps. As I mentioned, all the cracks and crevices or maybe the fissures will be sealed completely and hardness is imparted. So because of this extra strength acquired by the kernel during your parboiling process, this will help in reducing your brokens. So this way, the head rice yield is much higher in case of parboiled paddy compared to your raw paddy. Right? So the parboiled rice retains more proteins, vitamins and minerals than your raw meal rice. The reasons, of course, I already explained. These will be infused into the endosperm from outermost layer like bran layers. Okay. Now the parboiled rice, because it's harder, is more resistant to insect infestation during the storage. Okay. So since the parboiled rice structure is harder, the surface cannot be infested or maybe it cannot be bitten by insects. So the insect infestation during the storage is much better. However, there is a problem also with the parboiling of this thing that I will explain subsequently, whatever the difficulties are there. The loss of solids is actually like the gruel. So whatever the solids which goes out, that's called actually loss of solids in gruel during the cooking is less in parboiled rice. It is actually less in parboiled rice compared to raw rice. So the gruel of raw rice is much thicker. The gruel of parboiled rice is almost clear. So not much solids will be going with the gruel. So that means your most of the solids, starch etc., will be remaining in the cooked kernel rather than going out with the gruel. So because the one which is going out with gruel, that's the last basically. In addition, actually, it will create lot of pollution where it is being dumped. Okay. Now the parboiled rice withstand overcooking without becoming pasty, which already I mentioned. So 30 to 40 minutes it will take for cooking. Even if you slightly overcook also, this will not become pasty. So that is another major advantage. The bran from the parboiled rice, they contain about 25 to 30% of oil, whereas the raw rice bran contains only 15 to 20% oil. Okay, so this is another advantage. The parboiled rice, this oil, of course, if you are having more in case of your bran with parboiled rice, this can be utilized for extraction of oil, and this oil is used as a healthy cooking oil. So rice bran oil is actually very expensive after your sunflower or maybe another compared to your palm oil, etc. This is actually quite expensive because it is a heart friendly. So 25 to 30% you are getting. So this is mostly used for the oil extraction purpose. Now the heat treatment of paddy during a parboiling which is being done because it's a hydrothermal treatment. So that means you are doing heat treatment also. This will be destroying the lipase enzyme to a certain extent. So that is responsible for the hydrolysis. Generally, actually, once you open the lipid layer, so a lot of development of free fatty acids will be there in presence of this lipase enzyme. Since you are going for heat treatment, this lipase enzyme is destructed or maybe destroyed for to extent. Therefore, the development of free fatty acids will be minimized. So, therefore, the bran is more stabilized and the oil is of superior quality. So, these free fatty acids, what we are talking, ultimately, these will be extracted along with your oil. So, if you don't go for this heat treatment, the bran is to be separately stabilized with using some kind of heat treatment. But in this case, the bran is more stabilized compared to raw rice bran. And in turn, the oil is more superior quality because it doesn't contain free fatty acids. In fact, free fatty acid content you should not have in oil. So this is actually having some kind of rancidity or maybe oxidative changes. So that's why more free fatty acid, the oil will be vulnerable to utilization. So that it cannot be used for the edible purpose. So there are certain limits. Of course, you cannot completely avoid, but up to 2% or 3% of this FFA, the bran can be utilized for the edible oil extraction. Otherwise, the bran has to be thrown, or maybe the oil which is extracted with a higher free fatty acid is used for alternative uses but not for edible uses. Am I clear?
Sir, can you explain the last point again?
Yeah, actually, the bran which contains, let us say, oil, this oil actually it undergoes a hydrolysis process. Okay, so if lipase enzyme is present, so in presence of lipase enzyme, this hydrolysis process will be developing some kind of free fatty acids within the oil components. This oil actually it is lipid and oxidizing these oil materials, oil bearing materials will be converting into some free fatty acids, FFA. This is in term it's called. These free fatty acids are oxidative compounds which are not good for the health. So in fact, we use antioxidants, but these are considered as oxidants. So oxidants are actually detrimental for the health. So if the oil contains more FFA, more free fatty acid, that is not suitable for the consumption purpose, human consumption purpose. So if you are doing this parboiling process, which is actually a hydrothermal treatment, the temperature which is being used or the heat treatment which is being used on the paddy, that will be inactivating this lipase enzyme. That means there is less scope of such kind of hydrolysis process which is happening after the bran removal from the kernel. So therefore, this is termed as stabilization. Stabilization means the bran which doesn't contain lipase enzyme and which is more stable for developing any kind of free fatty acid, that's called stabilization process. So when the parboiling is not done, the bran has to be separately heat treated so that the lipase enzyme will be inactivated. So otherwise, actually, the moment you remove the bran, so it will be very fast. Maybe within a couple of hours, the free fatty acid, the FFA or free fatty acid will be shooting up like anything. So maybe in a couple of hours, it will be reaching to more than 5%, and which is not suitable for oil extraction. Even if it is oil extracted also, that oil will not be suitable for the edible purpose. In this case, in the process itself, because of the heat treatment, the lipase enzyme is inactivated. The bran is more stable compared to raw rice bran. Am I clear now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is clear.
Of course, not all is very green, and there are some disadvantages of also with the parboiling process. The heat treatment, although it is beneficial in terms of lipase enzyme inactivation, but it may destroy some natural antioxidants which are present in the rice bran. So this is of course another difficulty. Therefore, the parboiled rice develops more rancidity when you open it up. Okay, the surface which is the surface which is actually removed with this bran, so those will be undergoing more rancid because the rice kernel doesn't contain any natural antioxidants. Similarly, that's why actually the parboiled rice actually when you store it for a longer time, it will be developing some kind of bad odor. The storage odor is there. So that's what it's called rancidity. Now the parboiled rice takes more cooking time, which of course already we have discussed several times for the same degree of softness. Also it develops a taste, texture and a characteristic flavor and color, which is not liked by many raw rice eaters. Maybe the people who are from the south, so they may be habituated with, let us say, raw rice. So they may not like this typical taste and as well as some odor will be there. So these odors are actually not liked by the consumer who are actually habituated with raw rice eating. Whereas people from Kerala or maybe let's say West Bengal or eastern part, they are habituated with the parboiled parboiled rice consumption. So they may be liking or maybe they may be preferring that. But the taste, texture, even the flavor, even the typical yellowish or maybe creamy yellowish color, that is actually typical to the parboiled rice. So that may not be liked by many people. Because the parboiled paddy has a high moisture content for a long time, mycotoxins that are hazardous to human health may develop. But of course, in the today's modern processes, this problem of mycotoxins is minimized because the soaking is not done for a long time, unlike earlier days. In the conventional or maybe traditional process, the soaking is done for 24 hours to 72 hours. That is the reason for the mycotoxins development and which are hazardous to human health. But today, the process, most of the modern processes, they follow a 3.5 hour or maybe 4 hour cycle of soaking only. Thus, it may not develop much of the mycotoxins. However, if it is slightly developed also, this will be rather actually taken care during your drying process. However, this is a disadvantage with the overall parboiling process, right? Now, the parboiled paddy must be dried from 45 to 50%, that is the higher moisture content during soaking which has attained, and you have to bring down to 14 to 16% of the moisture for the proper milling and storage purpose. Okay. Of course, since you are removing the moisture content and if you are going for sun drying, probably you may not be incurring much of the energy. But if you are going for mechanical drying, so this definitely will be adding some extra drying cost to the total processing cost, right? So shelled parboiled rice is more difficult to polish. Although shelling is easier in case of parboiling, parboiled rice, parboiled paddy milling, but polishing is difficult because the surface is harder now, so it is more difficult to polish because it is harder, and consequently the mill throughput capacity is lowered and the mill power requirement will be increased. I hope I am clear to you. The removal of the husk is called dehusking. The dehusking is easier. The removal of bran, that's called polishing. So polishing is difficult because of the harder texture on the surface. So this will be requiring more power requirement also, and the throughput will be reduced. Am I clear in this point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the parboiled paddy may choke the polisher because of higher oil content. So it contains 25 to 30% of the oil. So many times it may be even oozing out. So that will be becoming a kind of cakey or maybe lumpy portion. So this lumpy portion of the bran which is being separated out, it may be choking the polisher. So that is one difficulty definitely. Then the parboiled process needs an extra investment of capital. So in case of simple raw rice milling, you will start with the cleaner. So the first and foremost operation in case of raw milling is the cleaning operation. Subsequently, you will be going for dehusking, paddy separation, polishing, grading, and of course packaging. But in case of parboiling process, you require an additional setup for the parboiling itself, where 3 more steps are added: the soaking, steaming, and drying. These are actually added. So this way, you need to invest more amount in case of parboiling milling unit. So that will be obviously a kind of extra investment of capital. In spite of all these disadvantages, the higher outturn of total rice, about 1 to 2%, as well the head rice brings an additional profit. In fact, this overall rice improvement will be there. So like actually the overall rice is called total milled rice. So this total milled rice will be at least 1 to 2% higher. Similarly, the head rice also it will be more. So if you are getting, let us say, some 60% in case of raw rice, so here actually you may be getting almost to 68%. So there is a 7 to 8% of higher head rice yield is there. So that will be bringing additional profit and ensures lower prices to the consumer. So overall, whatever the investment additionally you are doing, whatever the extra energy cost which you are incurring, in spite of that, this additional head rice yield, this will be definitely saving the industry from such kind of losses, and overall you can keep the lower price to the consumer. In fact, if you see the market, the parboiled rice is actually always lesser price compared to raw rice of the similar quality. Not that actually some inferior quality of raw rice will be available for 28 to 30 rupees, but the fine rice of raw rice, it will be costing about 50 rupees per kg, but the same equivalent quality or maybe equivalent variety of parboiled rice will be coming in 40 to 45 rupees only. So that there is a less price overall. Okay, am I clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this actually in a brief about the major advantages and disadvantages, as well the effects of the parboiling on various properties like nutritional or milling quality characteristics, etc. Okay. So any clarifications till now? Until now in these two parts, any clarifications? No? Everything
No,
is
sir.
clear, I
No
hope.
clarification.
Okay. Okay, so if everything is clear, then I think it's already 8:50 now. I'll just briefly introduce you with the different methods of parboiling. Then, of course, we'll stop in next couple of minutes. Is this visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Now, looking at the methods of parboiling, one of the most interesting and maybe important method as far as Indian industry is concerned, the CFTRA method we have seen, but that is considered as a modern parboiling method. But if you see from the ancient days, so there are actually a lot of traditional processes which are used as a pre-milling treatment. Okay, so some of them are mentioned here. Atapa, which is actually one of the traditional process, which is originated in Bengal. Bengal means basically that time it was both West Bengal and East Bengal together. Now East Bengal is basically now Bangladesh. So in this eastern region, in Bengal region, so this has been developed where soaked at room temperature for 24 hours and sun dried. Simply actually soaked for 24 hours and subsequently it is dried on the floor of floor so that the sun drying is happening. This actually, although it improves that nutritional or maybe you can say the other kind of smell, etc., but the breakage was more because the soaking will obviously develop the fissures more in a, what you can say, in aggressive way, and subsequently we are simply drying. So there is no steaming treatment. So though that's why I think the breakage is more, but however the resulting rice might be liked by many people. The other one is balam, which is also originated in Bengal, where the paddy is sprinkled with simple water and sun-dried and milled. So it is actually slightly better than artapa because the soaking for 24 hours is causing the major damage of the quality in the first case. Okay, whereas in the second case simply it is sprinkled with water and of course sun-dried. Okay, so this way the improvement of milling was there, and it was of course better than atapa. The third process is called Josh, which is actually developed in Pakistan, and larger earthen pots are filled with paddy and water, placed over a 15 centimeter rice husk, which is filed and left overnight. So this way, the partial cooking is happening overnight. Then the water is drained and heated over iron pans for 1 hour, followed by sun dry. So this 1 hour heating on iron pans, that itself will be removing much of the moisture content, and subsequently this is actually sun dried. Okay, so this of course is definitely improving the milling quality, as well the intended features of the pre-treatment, like actually the specific fragrance or maybe color, etc., will be developed. Now another process is called Sela, which is originated in India, where paddy is soaked in water for 24 hours to 48 hours, then gently roasted in hot sand at 80 to 90 degrees centigrade. So this will be removing some amount of soaked water, and subsequently it is dried under sun and of course milled. So this also has improved the milling quality, and while you are getting the better better milling yield. However, in this case also, the color of the resulting rice is actually much deeper. Okay. Another one actually called Siddha. So that's where from actually the Siddha rice or Siddha chawal. What name is called? What name is actually spelled in eastern region? So this Siddha has come originated in West Bengal, or sorry, originated in Bengal, soaked in water for 20 hours and then boiled for a few minutes and sun dried instead of roasting. So this has been actually so boiled for a few minutes and subsequently this is sun dried. Okay. So these are actually a couple of the traditional methods of your pre-milling treatment, and that way actually they try to improve the rice quality, or maybe they try to improve the nutritional quality. So sometimes actually, as in the first and second case, the milling quality may not be much better, but the nutritional qualities might have been improved. Okay. So with this actually I'll stop the presentation. Maybe we will take the next part in next class. Okay. Am I clear so far in this particular part?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can just give me 2 minutes. Just respond to your attendance. Sri Ram, are you there? Sri Ram, Somesh Harsha, Somesh Harsha, Abhilash Mukherjee.
Yes, sir, Somesh.
Yeah,
Sir?
fine. Yeah, great. Abhilash, Ajwad, Ajwad Juman, Ambika, okay. Anirudh Rajodia,
Yes, sir.
okay. Ankit Sharma,
Yes, sir.
Shriya Chilupuri, Rajhans Dale.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Dandar Ritvik Dandari, Divyant,
Present, sir.
Giridhari Sansi,
Present, sir.
Jayasiana, Kamala Lalit Sai Reddy, Kamala Lalit Sai Reddy, Mutawat Santosh, Nikhil Raj, Rajpal,
Present, sir.
Rajpal, na?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. Rupraj,
Present, sir.
Sandeep Rahula, Santrup Singh, Shubham Kumar, Tarun Tej,
Yes, sir.
okay. Sri Sai Venkat, Vanamu,
Present, sir.
Varun Lahoti, Veeranka Tirumleshwar,
Present, sir.
Burde Sahil, Deep, Burde Sahil, Deepak Kumar,
Present, sir.
Gugloth Ritvik, Harishwar,
Present, sir.
okay.
Present, sir.
Yeah, fine. Jayachandra Ramesh,
Present, sir.
Jyotiraditya,
Present, sir.
Kevin Sabu, Lakawat,
Present, sir.
Mayank Upreti, Mayank Upreti, Lokesh Babu,
Present, sir.
Neil Pratap Singha,
Present, sir.
Patlavat Vinod,
Present, sir.
Padmashri,
Present, sir.
Raghav Sharma,
Present, sir.
yeah, Raghav Sharma, Sajeev Haldar,
Present, sir. Shajib Haldar.
yeah, fine. Sanjeevani Ratna,
Present, sir.
Saptashva Maiti,
Yes, sir.
Saurav Janwar, Saurav, Sitaram, Sheikh Mahil Hussain,
Present, sir. Sitaram.
Sitaram present, Sheikh Mahil,
Present, sir.
Sheikh Mahil, are you there?
Present, sir.
Okay, fine. Shruti Mahalakshmi,
Present, sir.
Sumit Mahesh Karwa, Deepika,
Present, sir.
Utkarsh,
Present, sir.
Prashant, Banvi Suryavanshi, Nikita,
Present, sir.
Yogesh, Satish, Megashrita,
Present, sir.
Dhaval Sumit, Dhaval Samir, Barcha Dhaval Samir, are you here? Ritik Jha, okay, thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. See you in the next class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mudavat Santosh, are you there?